Hi, everyone, and welcome back to iGaming Accent that is brought to you by SBC Summit. Today, I have a special guest that we will be talking to. But before jumping into anything, I think that it is one more time important to share the details about a really cool summit happening in Tbilisi. This is SBC Summit Tbilisi 2026. This is happening on 15th to 16th of July in Tbilisi, organized by both SBC and SMH Global. And this is fourth year in a row that is happening. And believe me, the summit has been growing. We have a wonderful agenda. So it's a must to visit, and the tickets are already available and registration is open. So please feel. And without any ado, today I have a wonderful guest, one of a long-term experienced person within the industry for many years already. I will not do a further introductions, but today I'll be hosting Kaido Ulejev. I'm hoping that I pronounce your surname right, Kaido.
Absolutely.
How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting Vakho, and I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure. Like you already started my intro, I've been close 15 years in iGaming industry, and yes, it has been a lot of fun and many good stories.
To be like completely honest, like first we have always a brief introduction of people that we are hosting. So Kaido, I love to hear about your journey into iGaming, and I think that everybody has some kind of fun twist on it, like how they ended up in the iGaming. So I would really want, and also our listeners would really want to know about you more. How did you end up in iGaming? What was your journey?
Yes, sure. So my background is very much from media and advertising industry. I was there many years before joining with iGaming. And to be honest, if you look at media and advertising, there are quite many similarities compared with iGaming, meaning that there is focus on audiences and behavior and monetization and so on. With iGaming comes all this complexity which is related or connected with the regulations. So yeah, I was approached and headhunted by Olympic Entertainment Group 15 years ago, and I joined with them as head of their online operations. And I was back then I established with the team their current flagship brand OlyBet. We started under Estonian license, and then we moved forward with other licenses. And you are absolutely right. There especially for me back then, being completely a rookie in the industry, there was many moments when I was thinking that, oh my God, what's going on? Is it does it have to be so complicated and difficult? For example, I remember very well when we took Latvian license as second one, local regulated license, and meeting with Latvian regulator was really nice, and they welcomed us, and that now we can operate under local license and pay taxes and everything. But they pointed out, please, gentlemen, keep in mind that you can't do any advertising, any marketing, because this is fully restricted under Latvian regulation. You understand that this is actually one lesson what I have learned in iGaming, that companies and people here, they don't need to be just smart and fast to be competitive. They need to be also very creative. And creative is kind of part of our industry.
Yeah, creativity is a big part, and I think that many people are figuring it out a little bit late, that you can be creative about anything, even like regulations. You can do many things within the strict regulations as well, and that is also the fun part of about our industry. But
Yes.
before we go there, I think that one of the most important things that I would love you to also like little bit elaborate. You've been on my favorite both parts. Like you've been on media part, that from my previous days in B2C, where like one of the biggest, let's say, contributors of user acquisition and driving the customer acquisition. And then you took all that knowledge and became part of the B2C operations, right? From the Olympic Bet. what was the biggest, let's say, turning point that you discovered that from my expertise, I will use this to grow this brand?
I think, like I mentioned already before, that there are similarities, but and there is one aspect which is very often forgotten in iGaming, or let's say what is connected with the regulation of iGaming, is that decision maker is player, not operators, regulators, not somebody else, but players who will decide with whom they play, where they play, and with whom they play. And this is something what I was learning very quickly in the iGaming industry, and especially when after 3 years after OlyBet, I joined with Betsson Group, which was already completely different experience to me. It was a really global company with many markets. You had around you many talented, smart people with different licenses, different cases from different regulations, and so on. So it was super good learning curve for me. And of course, the culture what Betsson as company has is super good and super strong. Yes, coming back to your question, that the main thing what I was using during my journey in Betsson was that. How to make your brand attractive to the customer. Because if you look at the gaming sites and gaming brands, the story is very often similar or same, that we are having same content providers, same or similar events, and so on. So you need to find ways how to be different, or how to get closer to the customers, and this is always the key, that how to make yourself more relevant.
Totally agree. And I think that Betson nails it on few levels. And most of the one that I have been in touch with the brand, by the way, they are one of our, let's say, big clients, and I love them and working with them. The part that on many markets, they all, beside the, let's say, iGaming brand, they have also really good media brands as well. And they have established on those markets as one of the good media brands for sports book and sports interested people. And they have like a voice of fans everywhere they go. So that is also a really good and smart way to stand out from the competition, because Kaido, as you said, many of the providers, let's say operators, have the same, let's say, offering, same
Yes,
catalog, same everything, but the way they need to stand out is quite, let's say, creative part also is involved in that.
absolutely.
But that always brings me to one thing. So you've been working with the tier one companies, right? So one with from the local license, then to the global companies such as Betson, and like approaches they are using on different markets are quite strict, quite regulated, and like they don't go out of the rails anywhere. But while competing, there is an important part about the regulated market versus the, let's say, I would call it black market. I don't want to go in a gray zone. So let's call it white and black
Yeah,
black.
I fully agree with you, Vakho, that there is no point to talk about gray market anymore. Let's call it black
What
and
it is.
white. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's call
It
it
is
what it is.
it is much easier for us and much easier for our listeners as well. So
Yeah.
we have heard many stories right now what is happening in different markets, and how the most regulated markets are attracting the black market operators and what they are doing there for user acquisition, retention, and like treating like UK, for example, like Italy, for example, and many other that are really restrictive, really well regulated, and so on and so on. I will underline not well regulated. In your ears, what was the, let's say, competition level there? Were the black market operators that smart, or was there all like a beginning parts of it? What was the approach, even from your point of view? Like, were you competing against them, or you were
Yeah,
competing?
yeah. This is I think this is one of main topics what you took right now when we talk about iGaming in general, that this kind of fight between regulated markets and black market is happening. And obviously market by market stories can be different and situations are different. This is because this is actually interesting aspect here, that in these 15 years there are more and more markets are regulated, more and more local regulations started, but still black market is growing everywhere, or let's say not everywhere, but it is growing in total. It is growing. So this is kind of a controversial moment here, but it is happening, and that's why there are some very simple principles what I have learned, that as the fight is happening, that always when regulated market becomes less competitive, it means automatically that black market is winning.
Mm-hmm.
And when black market is winning, it automatically means that players are less protected. So these points are or dots are connected, and this is happening everywhere. That very often I hear where when regulators they start their presentations from player protection as main goal or main idea of the regulation, and on the paper it sounds very good and it is right, but the mistake they do is that they think that more restrictions gives them better regulation,
And
but
it's
it's
not
not
like
like that. It's not like that. We all know that what they should be looking for and what they should be aiming for is balance, because this is the way how you keep players on their loop, and they don't have a motivation or reason to go to black market. But very often this is kind of forgotten, and somehow people sitting in regulator seat, they think that they know the best what people need or players need, but unfortunately it's not true.
like that. Yeah. I've seen an interesting post few weeks ago about UK getting new politician who will
Yes.
be regulating, and it's like I don't want to make a mocking or like all the disclaimers said. Like even his salary, from the salary, you can say that he's just an entry level, let's say, not even a middle experienced.
Yes, I
Who will
fully
be?
agree what you are saying. I was reading the same, and I think this reflects a bit this kind of conflict there, that although regulators they state that they are fighting against black market, to be honest, to me it looks that they are not taking it seriously enough,
Mhm.
because people operating running black market, they are not some teenagers or somebody who started business yesterday. They have been in this business for a long time, and you know, always black market is not only one step but many steps ahead of regulated markets. This conflict is always there.
I think that opens up another, how to say, bad theme that we might need to address, is that there is a will is good, right? Regulators want to regulate and want to protect the players itself,
Yes.
but the impact that they are making and the cost that it gives the tier one operators and licensed operators is quite high. So what is the right balance there, and what is the role of politicians and regulators in the terms of regulating it in right way? So where should they go and where should they not? What is the
Mhm.
good balance? Like, have you ever seen the good market where this is happening in the right way, or we are still waiting for it to happen in a good way?
Yes, let me give you example of good and not that good, or let's say bad
Yeah.
regulation in that sense, which I have had connection very closely. I start from this second meaning bad example, which is what is happening currently in Lithuania. Very solid market. Starting from 2022, regulators started to introduce and policymakers started to introduce more and more restrictions to the industry. Result of that is that there are no bonuses, no activities, no campaigns, nothing. And now it's decided that from 2028, all marketing will be banned, including sponsorships.
Total ban on marketing.
Yeah, and same time, the number of license holders is pretty much remained the same. Nobody wants to enter to the market. There is a strong market leader and so on, but no new enters to the market. And now is next initiative from the regulator is to introduce this so-called unified player card, meaning that the regulator will have visibility on player level about your transactions, activities, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you understand right away that
this happened in many countries. And
yes, exactly. And most of players, especially players who play bigger volumes, they simply don't like it. And that's why I see that this trend or direction what is taken in Lithuania is very worrying, and it definitely doesn't bring good results, meaning that it's not a balanced regulation.
And I've seen where always that goes. Like when the regulators have that visibility, then they introduce the limits of for the customers to have
Yes.
it as a protection of the customer, and that is the I think one of the last pivoting points when users decide it doesn't make sense to play here. It doesn't offer me any benefits. It doesn't provide me any bonuses. It charges me extra to withdraw. So it's much better for me to seek out a black market. And that is always a problem starter, let's say, for them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is because we are, as iGaming, we are an online service, meaning that there are no borders or there are very kind of difficult to set these kind of borders there. So it means that people are free to decide, at least in countries where there is freedom. I'm not talking about some cases where internet is controlled and limited, but and players have the right to decide where they play. And if you restrict it too much, you limit it too much, you make some whatever conditions there, then they simply feel that it's way too much. It's not fun anymore. They do it somewhere else. In that sense, Kling is very emotional. But players, when they need to decide where they play, they can be very rational. They simply look at, okay, if I play there, what I get. If I play there, what I get. And as simple as it is. To give a good example, I'm not saying that this is the best, maybe, but it's as it is close. I'm using this Estonian, Estonian license because much more liberal approach through the years. But what I wanted to bring out here is that in the moment or current situation where almost all markets, all countries, all local regulation are increasing taxes, Estonia took a different approach and decided to lower the tax to attract more operators who can use Estonian license to target players from markets where they want to target them. So Estonian license doesn't limit that what kind of players you can accept. Of course, there are additional criteria like everything related with AML and so on, but the principle itself, I think, is very important because it's not talked enough, and it's not pointed out enough, I think, from the industry, that every local regulation automatically means higher expenses, higher cost for operation.
For sure.
And this is something what is ignored, because you understand that every business person behind the operator, they always need to calculate in which market to operate, under which conditions, under which license, and what are these specific criteria. And simply increasing taxes, increasing the costs of operation. Plus, it's not only about the gaming tax; it's also about the complexity of the regulation itself. I mean, compliance topics, how much you need to be, and what exactly needs to be certified, how often, and so on. So there are many aspects which simply may be ignored or not taken that seriously. And that's why I really like this thinking of Estonian policymakers that, okay, let's see how it goes. Of course, it doesn't guarantee that this can be successful, but at least they have stated that they want to check and they want to test this approach that they lower taxes. In generally speaking, Vaho, sorry, just to end it, I think that every regulator, every country who is regulating the market, they should have very clear kind of not only theoretical points why they are opening and regulating the market. They should measure it. They should have clear KPIs how the regulation is going, because this is the way how you can get feedback and see how you are doing. Yes.
For the good part, like I will have a close watch on the Estonian market because I didn't know that part. I think that it sounds really interesting, and from the regulator touch point, I think that they will attract a lot of, let's say, international investors and international companies that want to establish the operations. And I think that that will be a good way. But on the bet side, I can give also a few examples because I just remembered regarding the taxes, like on a sports bet, the taxes was increased by 5%, but regulators didn't understand how much of the impact that was because on the sports, it was increased on sports bet. So from every bet, we had to take it into account. Basically, it came down to like around 70% of the GGR generated from the sports bet was paid into the tax. And imagine that you want to do some promotions on a sportsbook. You can do absolutely nothing when you have to pay that much for the taxes itself. So at the end of the day, what happened was that players got the, let's say, bad treatment from all the Georgian casinos and from all the Armenian casinos because they couldn't get anything. Like, if you are an operator, you wouldn't do any promotion if you know that, like, it's working close to break even because we all know that sportsbook is, let's say, a roller coaster. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's
Yeah,
bad. On
exactly.
average, it's still very well structured, but at the some points when companies would risk it, they could go in the big minuses. So that was also a really, really bad. And I remember one more, like one of the most, I don't know, strange rules about withdrawal tax. So it is such a bad thing. Like, imagine as a player when you win and you need to withdraw and you know that 5% or 10% or 30% of that money when you withdraw goes in the taxes. So you risked your money as a player, like I'm talking from their experience as a player, you risk your money, you might lose, but when you win, you are still taxed on that. So I think that that really opens up to many minds. And as you mentioned, and I cannot agree more on that, even though it's an emotions, it's everything, and players might be emotional, might be searching for adrenaline, different types of dopamine and serotonin. In that moments, they become very analytical, very
Absolutely.
straightforward. They
Absolutely.
know they're getting.
Let me give you a similar example from Latvian regulation. With this time when I have been in iGaming industry, there are really alarming points in Latvian regulation, and somehow policymakers have not taken and changed them. And one of them is it's not that long, but still there is same this that players when they withdraw, then they need to pay tax, but in Latvian case, it's done this way that from certain amount, doesn't matter if you are winning or losing player, you still need to pay this tax. And you understand that this is the simple reason why many poker players, Latvian poker players, they are playing under Estonian license because they know what is math and they can calculate very well. So you understand that these are moments when you look at them and you think that it doesn't make any sense why policymakers simply don't fix them because they are losing tax money, that their license is losing it. But it is as it is.
I like the regulation part is always a headache from my point of view. Like
No,
when I
it's
remember,
same time very interesting.
it's interesting, but always like I'm an ex-marketing guy. I need to say the
Yeah.
disclaimers here as well. Like you can understand for every regulation what I need. Like I had to. This is the funny story as well. We were entering one of the markets and we changed the launch campaign 3 times because of the regulation. So before we launched, like there was a small tweak first time, then the big one, then disclaimers, then we needed to remove some words, then we needed to remove some players from the video itself. I remember at one point I've been on a meeting where we were discussing, as a marketing people, we were discussing which foots of the football player is better in this angle, in order that at least we can show the foots of the players and not the players itself. But
Exactly.
it always was also the fun part. Like, you cannot show a footballer, but is there a reason like not to show the foot of the football player? So can they simulate that with that? Can we still make a sports book like sports promotion or sportsbook ad in terms of not showing the sport itself or not showing something out of that? So this was always a fun part that as marketing guys we're figuring out on ourselves, and like going to the closest line there is, a red line that was always from the legal part, regulation part, like regulators, like not pissing them off at the same time and being staying within the regulation. But it's, as you say, it was always a fun part. But this brings me to the next topic that I would love to discuss with you, because like Olympic entertainment and also Betsson Group are well known worldwide. And like, for example, you mentioned like starting from the zero and taking another license when you were part of Olympic entertainment, but as part of the Betsson, you might be involved in many market entries because Betsson is spread around the world, right? So can we talk a little bit about the ups and downs of entering the new market and adding the new headache to you, let's say like that? Sorry for sorry for my French, let's say like that. And like, how was also during this time, I'll have a few more things, like how was the culture impacted, how the core culture was kept, and what was the business around it also, because I've seen Betson doing some merger and acquisitions, and some other brands are doing mergers and acquisitions in order to enter new markets. But I've also seen some brands starting from the zero and going all in and building the brand from bottom to up. So what was your experience and what can you share?
I think I will start from the end, meaning that this is the reason why we see more and more this acquisition by big companies taking over local brands, because to enter to the new market from scratch nowadays is more and more complicated and more risky. I would even say that, although we are in the business where risks are always there to be, because one criteria what we always want to kind of keep in mind in iGaming industry is how fast we can move, how fast we can grow. But now I see more and more together with this fast entering and fast growth in the market is that how in the, let's say, in a bit longer run, how profitably you can do it, meaning that entering to the new market is always, you need to invest a lot. Nobody wants to have a high risks that you burn a lot of money investing to the new market and you will not get return. So this is clearly what we see today in the iGaming industry is happening, that companies are very much looking this as one of key moment there, that all right, taking a new market, that how quickly we can make it profitable. This
And
is very
also
important.
get the biggest market share, because I've seen the companies competing not only to make a business bigger, but
Yeah.
also make it so that the market share is the biggest part of the market share is theirs.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this also comes together with this, what we were touching before, this regulatory environment, because we understand very well that that if you enter to the new market and in that moment conditions change, let's say market conditions change very much, then you are having high troubles and issues with that, because nobody is ready for that. So I have many cases where let's say preparing and entering to the market was one story, but the reality in the market was different. Then you need to adapt. I think this is the reality of all gaming operators that adapting with situation is the key. How well you can do it, how fast you can do it, and how you will find your business opportunity there.
Totally agree. I remember that at one point while I was working in Flutter, Flutter decided to enter Italian market, and they bought like number 5 or 6 operator, and that was like CEECA. CEECA itself was quite big, and like it had around 10 to 12% of the market share. But like last year, Flutter also bought Snaitech, the leading one. So they like took over Italian market under one sweep. So they are now the biggest players there, even though there are lots of companies, like more than 25 to 20 to 25 companies competing for that market. But like with acquisition, like Flutter did an amazing job there. And I've seen from Intent, from Betsson, from other like Allwin and so on, like similar strategies that they just go there, take over either leading one or top 3,
Yeah,
and they
absolutely.
establish that from day one. And I've seen good approaches and better approaches as well. And that is always a fun part about it and about this things. One important thing is that what I like, you are coming from the Betsson, like you have, let's say, at your core, you might have that Betsson spirit. So I will ask you regarding how Betsson approaches the sport events. As we have a biggest, I think that will be my questions until it starts and during the World Cup, because we are not going to stop the podcast during the World Cup, and it will be fun to review it as well. What was like, you are coming from media, you are coming from the iGaming together, and can you please like remember what was the major sport events as a drivers? Like, was it for more acquisition? Was it more for retention? What was the preparation process and how you prepared, and how big right now is this World Cup for, let's say, European market still, if the World Cup itself is held little bit to the west?
Yeah, absolutely. This is in when I was at Betsson and all these key sports events, let's say all international sports was one of key drivers of specific year. That doesn't matter, is it Cup, Euros, or some other sports. Of course, football is everywhere. Other sports are more like depending based on specific markets. But yeah, for sure that we were always preparing for this, and I think this is natural that even Betsson being known very much of their casino business, then sportsbook is still a really strong driver of activity. It's not only that you get a lot of new customers during that period, but you also get reactivations. This is a very good moment or opportunity to do different activations or reactivations, this way to kind of secure your next phase for your business. Of course, it comes together with this specific regulation in every market, what you can do, what you can use, and so on, plus some other aspects. But in general speaking, it's always very important from industry point of view.
Yeah, and lots of things are happening around that event, and
Yeah,
it really
for
drives.
sure.
Marketing guys are driven crazy, business guys are driven crazy, CRM guys are driven crazy, but that's it, what it is. This is
Yeah, but
iGame.
this is always very nice and fun. Also, that like you said, that marketing guys can do a lot of cool stuff, and this gives a lot of inspiration to people as well.
Yeah, I remember that we had some kind of mission control, like specially dedicated team sitting always together from the different parts of the organization, because we wanted the voice of everybody within the team to know. And
Hmm.
I remember one decision that this team made that was super awesome. There was a really bad contradiction of what happened within the match. So whoever had a bet on like on that thing to happen, like not to happen, like it was last minute red or something, and goal was declined. So they decided to reward everybody who had placed a bet and lost on that. And the outcome was so crazy that all other campaigns that we did was just like, I don't know, erased from the earth because they had small impact, and like the impacted players were like 2,500 or something, like not a big, big chunk of the active users and so on. But that type of treatment, that when something happens and the group is behind it and the operators can give real-time feedback to their customers and make the generosity like feel real, is a awesome winning point. One tradition now that you have to go through the pain of it, I think, or not, let's see, is that we have a tradition on our podcast that everybody who is attending leaves a blind question for next one.
Yes.
So right now, I'm gonna ask you a question from Mike from One We Crypto. He left you very, very interesting question, and from the today's discussion, I think that it can be quite easy for you to answer. But let's dive in. So, what do you think, Kaido? Which is underrated geo right now that is worth focusing on is in 2026?
Okay, maybe I'm taking it based on my experience very much, but I think that all these Stan countries are very interesting to have a look. I had some experience with Kazakhstan already, and some, let's say, other countries there as well. Of course, there are some movements in regulations what I think were going not that well, but these can be changed and can be fixed. I think this region is definitely interesting.
I can't agree more. And their digital presence is quite
Yeah.
big there.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
mobile adoption is quite big. Payments is well built on technical side and so on. So I've seen quite a things happening there. So that is really the market that we need to keep an eye on and
Yeah.
not to
Yeah.
miss out, let's say, and to make it
Fully
underrated.
agree.
Okay, then Kaido, I have one thing to ask you, is that you need to leave a question for the next guest.
Yes, I'm happy to have this question and then take it that I would ask from the speaker of next episode to bring up some good examples from current regulation, what he or she knows, and can share it as good example to the audience, because I think that SBC event you are having soon in July is very much about sharing experience and sharing best cases and stories that it would be very good to hear what the next speaker will talk about.
I think that you hit a jackpot there with the question, because to remind our listeners, the SBC is really happening in Tbilisi, like in just about a month, like from 15th to 16th. And one of the main points of this year's summit is Regulators Forum. It's started last year and it's been growing. So the thing will be that just in 2 months, we will have lots of leading regulators creating an open space for dialogues, and like different regulators from different countries like exchanging the ideas, and also very, very cool moment to interact with them and have the questions, meaningful discussions, and seeing them, let's say, in non-official environment, not in their building, let's say, or not on a meeting with them, just around the conference, like hanging out and giving the insights to everyone. So as far as early bird tickets are also available right now, like I strongly suggest to get your spot before it
Yeah,
ends.
actually, this was funny. Yesterday, in this conference, I met also Estonian regulator, and he told me that he will take part of this SBC event in Tbilisi, and he was very much looking forward to this conversation with the other regulators, because I feel that regulators, or at least some of them, they really feel that they need to change this kind of experience they have, and thinking, and how they see the future, and so on. So yeah, I fully agree that this is very, very hot topic regarding how this regulation will continue.
And I will ask one last question, I think, before we go. Kaido, are you also attending the summit in Tbilisi?
Today, I think odds are very high that I will take part. Most likely, I will fit. And then, based on my previous experience visiting Tbilisi, I know this is something you remember for years. So I'm really looking forward, and let's say most likely I will do it.
That's already reassuring. And I'll just remind our listeners that when you visit Georgia and visit Tbilisi, is it summit or not, take care and don't do more than few chachas because you will regret it on the next day. But of
Yes.
course, you need to try that part.
You need to manage risks. This is for sure.
Yeah. So I think it's a good wrap up, and let's wrap it up. Thank you, Kaido, for being here. I just remind all our listeners that you can subscribe to us in all the channels. We are everywhere, starting from Spotify, ending with Apple Music. So you can listen to our podcast anywhere you go in any of your favorite platforms. This was iGaming Accent brought to you by SBC Eurasia. And Kaido, one more time, thank you and see you in Tbilisi.
Thank you very much. Looking forward.